Welcome back to another one of Mr. Lang's vlogs. Today, we're talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Teddy Roosevelt. So Teddy Roosevelt had quite an interesting rise, as he actually was not elected president at first. Now, he technically is our youngest president we've ever had as of this point. However, he kind of fell into the position as vice president. Unfortunately, he was vice president to McKinley, and McKinley got shot. He got assassinated. And when he does, by a man named Shogosh, again, an anarchist, who literally went ahead to go shake the president's hand, President McKinley, he had a gun wrapped in a handkerchief around it, and when he went to shake the hand, he shot. And the bullet really went right into McKinley's abdomen, and he was a bigger dude, so it actually got lodged in there. They couldn't really get it out. He's going to die shortly after. Now, what ends up happening is we then have someone who we really didn't think was going to be president. In fact, this was a man who I could go on and on about his previous life here prior to being a president. And he was kind of a rogue, and they literally gave him the VP job because they were like, oh, all right, we'll keep him under control and under watch. And yet, because of what happened with McKinley, Teddy Roosevelt becomes our next president in 1901. So he is the youngest president. The youngest elected president is JFK. But again, Roosevelt wasn't elected at first. So what he's going to do is he's going to do a lot of progressive changes, a lot of incredible changes during his presidency. One of the first being the bully bullpen. He literally used his platform, if you will, to publicize important issues and seek support for different policies. Again, he is a progressive himself. He's a very progressive president who wants to make change for the better. And in fact, he says this in his most famous program ever, the Square Deal. He's going to speak against these vital issues that are facing Americans. And of course, here's the funeral procession of President McKinley there. So what is this Square Deal? Well, it's kind of what it sounds like. Teddy Roosevelt wanted a fair deal for all. Whether you're, in the lower class, in the working class, just doing your best to get by, or you were one of the gigantic, huge, monopolistic robber barons, he wanted a fair deal for all, or a square deal. And this becomes his campaign slogan when he goes for re-election in 1904 as well. He wanted to balance really the interests of business, consumer, and the laborers. Now, that's not an easy task. Now, it's easier said than done, that's for sure. But Teddy Roosevelt is going to deliver. And again, to help you remember, look, it's a square deal. And it's a square. So the four corners of the square, we have regulating businesses, which we're going to go over. We're going to go over all four of these. But regulating businesses, which he's going to do. He's going to do that fantastic. Is he's going to take down the bad monopolies that hurt the consumers. He's going to protect the consumer. As there are going to be not great things going on, if you will, in the meatpacking industry, and even in the really the drug industry as well, as we'll talk about. He's going to be promoting public health and safety. Again, kind of goes in line with that as well. And he's going to improve working conditions, something that was huge, as working conditions weren't great at the time, as we found out in the last vlog. So how is he going to go ahead and regulate business? Well, he's known as the trust buster. That's right. He's going to bust up these trusts that hurt the consumers. Again, these monopolies. He goes after these companies that hurt the public's interest. And that's pretty fair, I would say. These companies violated that Sherman Antitrust Act that we talked about, and he's going to use that act to go ahead and prosecute them if need be. You can see him here giving a speech. He used to do this a lot, to get his point across. He also said bully a lot, which was cool back then. So he'd be like, oh yeah, bully. Pretty cool. So, to regulate business, he does a couple things. First is, of course, again, breaking down those monopolies, he also goes after Vanderbilt. So we talked about Vanderbilt earlier and how he had the railroads. Those railroads were absolutely buying up all these little independent railroads and charging exorbitant prices to the little guy, giving the big corporations a break. So he says, well, that's fine. We'll have the government go ahead and decide what the rates are for the railroad. And so he creates the ICC, or the Interstate Commerce Commission. They put through two different acts that are essentially going to both address the same thing, which is shipping. You have the Elkins Act, which means everyone had to pay the same rates for shipping. Doesn't matter who you are. And of course, the Hepburn Act, which basically said the government could set the maximum railroad rates. So Vanderbilt couldn't go ahead and gouge people, again, with gigantic rates that was just unfair. Now let's talk about what was going on in the food and drug industry. So he's going to promote the public health and safety of all. And he does that because companies are doing some pretty shady stuff. In fact, they were selling old food, adding chemicals to it and calling it fresh. Chemicals including borax, which is like a soap, to give you an idea, which is disgusting, and glycerine. Again, drug companies are going to add things like alcohol, cocaine, morphine, all these drugs to their products, or you could buy them over the counter at your druggist, which is essentially, kind of think of like a pharmacist nowadays. Companies also sold things like wonder drugs, which were essentially sugar pills that did absolutely nothing. However, of course, they would claim it would do a million different things. It'd make your complexion better. You'd have less headaches, less indigestion, etc. But they were all fake. Now, why do you think I have Coca-Cola on this slide? Yeah, exactly. There were trace amounts of cocaine in the original formula for Coca-Cola, just to have you coming back for more. You've got things like this, Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup for children teething, which again had whiskey in it. You have cocaine toothache drops. They don't even try to hide it; it's right there. And of course, heroin. They use something by Bear and Bear, something that they're still around today. They make aspirin and all that. You could literally just buy heroin at your local druggist. Again, being a pharmacist back then. So we needed a solution, and Teddy Roosevelt was about to give one. He urges Congress to pass the Pure Food and Drug Act, basically forbidding any type of food and medicine containing harmful ingredients to be made. This also includes having ingredient labels so we get to see what we're ingesting into our bodies, and forbade chemists from making stale food look fresh and basically make it smell good and get it out and sell it again. This is huge. This is huge, as he's now going ahead and protecting what was essentially the Wild West of anything, you put anything in your body, whether it's very, very harmful. He goes ahead and protects the public, really promotes the public health and safety of all. Now, he helps protect the consumer when it comes to the meatpacking industry. So Upton Sinclair, you see here, he goes ahead and writes the novel The Jungle. And when he does, this book is about an immigrant's working in the Chicago meat factory, and really one immigrant's tale. Now, it's loosely based on Upton Sinclair, what he had seen when he worked there, but he himself wasn't an immigrant or anything like that. But nevertheless, what he does is he shows the terrible conditions of what's going on in these meatpacking industries. Again, how the workers are treated, how unsanitary these foods are. And he goes ahead and gets, because of his book that Teddy Roosevelt read, Congress is going to pass the Meat Inspection Act, meaning that the government could go ahead and inspect the meat for, safety, health safety. It's interesting to think some of the things that were, in his book that were true, such as rats running along the meat with their droppings. The workers who would clean out the barrels, once every spring, and you'd find rusty nails and everything in there. And so much more graphic. All in this book that really did make the people go, that's what I'm eating in my breakfast. And definitely, change it. So here you go, very famous political cartoon of the muckraker there, right? The meat scandal, a nauseating job, but it must be done. That's right. Now, how did he go ahead and improve work conditions? Well, again, he wants a square deal for all. And one of his first problems when he ends up in the office in 1902 is the United Mine Workers. They go on strike. Now, back then, mines were a huge part of this economy and everyday life. Again, that they would be mining for coal that would help run the locomotives and the railroads, that would help heat homes. So when these workers went on strike, it was a big deal for the country. And so the owners refused to negotiate. The coal miners wanted higher wages, better working conditions, as again, the working conditions weren't great in the mines to begin with. And so Roosevelt steps in and he wants what they call arbitration. Arbitration is when you get two opposing sides that really can't agree. So you bring in a third party to help settle the dispute. Someone else comes in and basically says, okay, what do you want, mine workers? All right. And what do you want, owners? Okay. Take what they want, put it together, and say, here you go. This is what you're going to get. Compromise on both sides. And that shows, again, what Teddy Roosevelt was all about. Because he had other options. He could have sent in the army to go ahead and take control of the mines, get those mine workers back to work. He could put them under federal control. But he didn't, because he really was for a square deal for all, whether you're the worker or the owner. And so the solution was that workers' wages went up, and they had a shorter day. Owners didn't have to recognize the miners' union, which again was something they wanted. And in the end, everybody won. Everybody got something, and the workers went back to work. So pretty incredible when you think about it and how he really did listen to the people. Now, Teddy Roosevelt is well known for protecting the environment. Again, that was one of his biggest really loves. He really was a huge environmentalist. As a young cowboy, he was, out west in the Dakotas. Again, just really getting in touch with nature. So many different, living the cowboy life, living the rancher life. So when he becomes president, he really does see it as his duty to go ahead and, protect the environment. And he does so by creating 5 national parks, over 150 national forests, and altogether setting aside 200 million acres of land. Again, that's incredible. As of course, a lot of what we can really enjoy in our beautiful country, that beautiful nature, is because of Teddy Roosevelt. Again, how else did he protect the environment? Just like Captain Planet here? Yeah, you know Captain Planet, right? If not, you gotta look that up. Fantastic cartoon. Oh, so good. Anywho, he goes ahead and he puts through the Newlands Reclamation Act. So imagine this. Back then, when you had sold public land, right? The government goes ahead and sells public land. The money from that sale would just go back into government funding. It didn't necessarily go back into really any type of account to help improve land, maintain land, or even gain more land. In the end, the Newlands Reclamation Act is pretty simple. Any money from the sale of public land was to be used for irrigation, again, maintenance on other land, or reclaiming new land. Again, the way it should be, right? He also establishes the National Park Service, which was created to supervise the national monuments in the parks. Again, these are the amazing men and women that when you go ahead and you visit these national parks, if you ever get a chance, they're the ones that, are more than happy to talk about these historical projects or historical settings. They're incredible for tour guides and everything else. They're an incredible crew, and it's all because Teddy Roosevelt made that a thing, the NPS. Now, we do have to, of course, talk about Teddy Roosevelt and the Panama Canal. Now, the Panama Canal is probably his most famous foreign policy for sure, but what happened was not exactly ideal. Now, is it impressive that one president can go ahead and cut a whole continent in half? Yes. No other president has done that. However, what he does go ahead and, with the Panama Canal, creates a canal to go ahead and connect the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. Now, if you were to look at a map, you'll see that right in Central America, in Panama, that is the smallest point of our continent between the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. So it was made sense that right there we'd have a canal. Instead of going ahead and having ships go all the way around South America to go from the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa, here they can cut through the middle. The problem is that this became U.S. land, and we actually had hold of it and all the money for the next 100 years up until 2010. That's right, 2010. Where we went ahead and finally gave the people of Panama their land back. So yes, not the most incredible thing that we did, that Teddy Roosevelt did, as he should have let the people of Panama, which was a very poor country then too, have that money. It doesn't come until afterwards that they do get that. Here we see Booker T. Oh, wrong Booker T. Wrong Booker T. He is going to go ahead and really fail to support civil rights for the most part. However, he is going to go ahead and, support individuals during it. For example, he didn't really have any type of civil rights legislation to help African Americans out. However, he did support a few individuals like Booker T. Washington, who's going to found the Tuskegee Institute, which is a technical education institute for African Americans. Very famously, the Tuskegee Airmen did go ahead of World War II, came from the Tuskegee Institute. But he didn't actually put through any type of legislation to help civil rights with African Americans. During this time, we also have W.E.B. Du Bois from the NAACP. Now, that's going to be formed under him to promote rights for African Americans. Really, in 1909, a number of African Americans and prominent white reformers are going to really form this organization. And by, they're going to have 6,000 members by 1914. The NAACP stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And here we see that the goal is for full equality among the races through the court system, especially. And really, we see W.B. Du Bois become very famous because of this. And of course, be a huge civil rights leader going into the early part of the 20th century. Now, of course, everyone hears Teddy Bear, right? Maybe you don't know the story. Very famously, he's in Mississippi. He's having a hunting trip. He's having a bad one. Okay, Teddy Roosevelt's a huge hunter, and he didn't really have much. Didn't get much that day. So one of his assistants goes ahead, wrangles up a bear cub, and says, "Okay, sir, just shoot the bear cub, and there you go. You get your hunt." Teddy Roosevelt refused, drawing the line in Mississippi, as you can see by the Berryman political cartoon here. And because of that, the story becomes so famous that we start to get literally teddy bears. Again, bears named after Teddy. So yeah, when you snuggle with your teddy bear, it's because of Teddy Roosevelt. And of course, we see all of this beautiful natural formations, this nature, is all thanks to him. There's a lot of these parks that he helped protect. And although some of them he founded, some of them he didn't found, still, it was him that helped protect this. That's for sure. That's it. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll catch you back in the classroom.